Hey guys, I'm Matt Lighty, and this video we're talking about Grand Spectrums. Grand Spectrums are a subset of jewels acquired from the Lord's Labyrinth, aka Lab, and they come from the difficulties Merciless Uber and Enriched Uber. More specifically, they come from 3 different locations in the game. Silver chests, which we're not going to be talking about today because they are time inefficient in the most possible way. The Divine Justice Divination card, which is extremely rare and extremely expensive, realistically, and it's only really acquired from strong boxes, specifically armor strong boxes. And then the real way to get these coveted jewels is from the Labyrinth Trove. Now, the Labyrinth Trove is an interesting little box because it has a set amount of outcomes and has a roughly 1 in 30 chance to give a Grand Spectrum. Now, we have run, myself and some other people have opened over 1,000 Labyrinth Troves in the past day and a half, and from that 1,000 we've gotten 29 jewels, which puts our rate at roughly 30 Troves per 1 Grand Spectrum. Now, Grand Spectrums aren't all created equal, so let's briefly talk about what they are. So Grand Spectrums come, there's 9 variations from the lab, specifically the good ones you're looking for, I would say, are the minimum charges. So you can have 3 Grand Spectrums on your tree at any point in time. You could have 3 of the same or 3 different. If you had 3 of the minimum endurance, 3 minimum frenzy, and 3 minimum power, you'd be walking around with 3 of each charge. If you had enough maximum to support it and ran 3 of the minimum frenzy Grand Spectrums, you'd have 9 minimum frenzies. This is kind of cool and viable for certain builds running Badge of the Brotherhood or Slayers to convert one amount of max into another one, and you could do the same for min and get some fancy things going on there, or just have 9 minimum frenzies on a Trickster, because that sounds kind of fun. But Grand Spectrums are kind of expensive and hard to get in SSF specifically. This one I think is about 30 divines for the frenzy one. I actually got one of these yesterday doing this after about 5 or 6 hours of running lab. So specifically we're talking about opening up these Labyrinth Troves. Now, Labyrinth Troves are interesting for a few reasons, okay? They have some interesting interactions with how Grand Spectrums drop. Now, Labyrinth Troves have 6 different loot outcomes. Crafting currency, which is like trans, aug, alks and scours. Quality currency, so whetstones, baubles, that sort of stuff. Generic uncorrupted, so it's as if you opened like a white strongbox, and then generic corrupted, which is the same subset of loot, but corrupted. Jewelry, so rings, belts, that sort of thing, and then divination cards. The interesting part is when a Grand Spectrum drops off of a Labyrinth Trove, it's treated as an additional reward and follows the rules of subsets of these 6 different loot tables. For example, if you drop a Grand Spectrum when you hit a quality chest, it'll just drop normal. But if you drop a Grand Spectrum when your Trove hits corrupted, it will drop corrupted. Now, in the over 1,000 lab Troves we've run, we did have a couple corrupted Grand Spectrums, but none of them went rare, but some of them did gain implicits, corrupted implicits. So it is, I guess, technically possible for you to actually hit a Grand Spectrum off the Lab Trove, it picked the corrupted outcome, and then it brick into rare, although we've never seen it. Now, this amount of Lab Troves, you could do another 9,000 to get a better number, but there's no fucking information on this. I shit you not. There's literally, we've looked and there's like nothing since the last update. So this, I think, is as close as we're going to get to getting some information here. So this one hit the just generic loot, which is the generic non-corrupted. It's just a subsection of random trash loot. This one gave me a scarab and then just junk. Now, the reason that I would running this and trying to farm out 30 chests on average to get a Grand Spectrum is wholly dependent on the layout. So when you go to PoeLab.com, you have different layouts per day, so you can see the countdown to the reset. Shout out to the website, God bless. This is today's layout, okay? And in the first room, we have a gauntlet. Now, whether you have a gauntlet or a puzzle, the rate in which you get a Lab Trove versus a Curious Lockbox, which is an outcome we don't want, is totally interchangeable and random. All right, so this was yesterday's layout, being a puzzle and a gauntlet. So in this room, you could either have 2 Lab Troves, 2 Curious Boxes, 1 Lab Trove, 1 Curious Box. They could be on the left or the right side. They could, they could switch and swap around. It was totally random. Now, we're doing this using Offering to the Goddess, and we ran this 1,000 in Offering to the Goddess, being Uber Lab. Whether or not there is a higher or lower rate in Merc or the Enriched Labs, we do not know. We do know that running Tribute to the Goddess did not yield any increased rate of Grand Spectrums from Silver Chest or Lab Troves. So that full clearing the lab takes forever. But running the first room checking for a trove, popping it, leaving takes like a minute. Okay, it's very, very quick. Now, I really would only do this. I would be behooved to do this only on a day like yesterday, where it had two different trove type outcomes, a puzzle or a gauntlet in the first room, so you could quickly check them. So this one doesn't have that, right? Today it's a slow one. So it's either going to be on the right or the left side, meaning I'm already have to walk across if I see what's not on one side. But normally you can check, so I could check if it's curious, and if it's not a lab trove, I could just leave. So it's really easy to reset this, and it's really easy to get back in and check again. But keep in mind, again, it's like a 1 in 30 to hit a Grand Spectrum, which is kind of a bummer. To recap, there's some information that we know and some information we don't know. I know I'm reiterating some points here, but it is specifically important because this is going to determine whether this is worthwhile for you. You could just buy these on trade. The +1 Frenzy, again, is upward to 30 Divine, so that's, expensive. But we know where they drop. We know it's Lab Troves and Silver Chests. We know that Silver Chests take too long. Lab Troves are much quicker. We know that the labs that can drop from a Merciless Uber and the Uber Enriched. What we don't know is if there's a different drop rate from Troves versus Silver, or a different drop rate between the different difficulties of lab. We don't have any information or data to substantiate this. We know that the Divine Justice card most likely drops from Armor Strong boxes, although it's so incredibly rare that it is basically not worth farming ambush for. In a couple thousand strong boxes, I didn't see one card. The one perk is if you were to hit the card, it would be doubled from Vault of Mysteries. But again, the odds of hitting that card, not good. So that's like kind of a bummer. But hitting a lab trove is pretty quick from walking in a lab. Will you get a Grand Spectrum or not? No, it's hard to say. Here's another chance where I got an outcome of the generic chest. You can see here just regular loot, and I did not get my 1 in 30 for a Grand Spectrum. The Grand Spectrums are also weighted very differently. So, like, for example, these are all weighted similarly. The res, the avoid ailments, the minion crit, but the ones that are much more rare are the minimum charge ones. So any of the minimum charge ones are substantially rarer than the others, and their price points kind of reflect that. So an offering to the goddesses, we'll say 1 chaos each, okay? The cheapest, worst Grand Spectrums are 30, 40 chaos, I think? Yeah, more like 50 to 60 chaos for the worst Grand Spectrums. The Frenzy Grand Spectrums can look like they're about 16 divines for corrupted ones. Uncorrupteds can be fucking much more expensive, almost 30. There's definitely money to be made here. This is, the only thing is, like, this sort of activity, aside from solo self-found or unique collecting, which obviously is what I have my interest in when it comes to doing this sort of activity, for a trade league setting, this is like a fucking bot activity. Like, even on a good day, checking the left and right of lab for Labyrinth troves, and then hitting them to see if you get a 1 in 30 for a Grand Spectrum, seems like the most mind-numbing activity. I know some of you smoother-brained Path players out there in Trade League definitely would do something like this, and if you want to, there's definitely money on the table. Without question, there's money on the table to be had in doing an activity like this. However, it is rough. You're not going to get experience. You're not going to get anything else. You could probably buy the offering the goddesses in bulk for like 0.5 C each, and I would say you'd almost guarantee a Grand Spectrum on average every hour. So you're looking at a cost every hour of either on the low end 40 C and the upper end 30 divines. Would it average out to being profitable? Totally potentially. But yeah, farming out Grand Spectrums from lab troves is definitely the most time efficient way, even cost efficient way to get Grand Spectrums. From everything I've seen, there's no better way to get Grand Spectrums in the game currently than doing this activity. However, it is just, like I said, this is a fucking turnip-brained activity. You have a beetroot for a brain after this. Especially if you're trying to get 3 Grand Spectrums of minimum charges, and even more so if they're ones that are higher weighted, being the min charges or the percent life ones. Those are definitely more rare. So that's basically it. There's really nothing else to talk about here. If you want to get Grand Spectrums, this is the most data we have on this as of right now. Unless someone else wants to continue running Grand Spectrums in Merciless Lab to see if the rates are similar. If they are, you would still recommend waiting for a day where the first room has a puzzle and a gauntlet. Just because you're going to at least guarantee that the left and right side each has an outcome in the first room. Every time you get a curious lockbox, you're still resetting, hoping for a trove. It's still a 50-50. But yeah, this is it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you feel like this sort of activity is worthwhile for you. I know we got some real advanced strat runners out there. real bean collectors, kind of guys who are buying wisdom scrolls in bulk to sell. Hopefully you'll get a grand spectrum on your journey. I could sit here and run this lab until I get a grand spectrum just to show you what it looks like to drop a grand spectrum, but I could be here for fucking an hour because it's a bad layout today. Again, wait for a layout that has 2 in the starting room. So this is today's layout with 1 gauntlet. This is yesterday's with P and G, puzzle and gauntlet in the first room. You want to look for a layout like that. Instead, I'm just going to show you a clip of me dropping one, but because I'm extra lazy, I'm not even going to download the clip. I'm just going to go to my own Twitch page and show you the clip. So here's me from yesterday doing lab. There's a frenzy one right there. Pretty nice. Fantastic. Look how excited. I'm a little excited boy. I'm a happy little lad. If you want to be a happy little lad like me, you could do what I just showed you in this video. Or if I was in trade, I wouldn't do this. I would just buy it because this sucks. But here's the information on how to farm grand spectrums. Do with it as you choose. I'm Matt Lighty. Hope you guys have a good day. This has been all there can be about this. And if you have any questions, ask them in the comments below. Good luck farming grand spectrums out there. And I recommend that you don't do this and you just buy them and trade. And if you're in solo self-found, you're just going to eat shit with me. So get your spoon ready and start gobbling. Bye-bye.